I have never been to Saskatchewan because it is a province with no redeeming qualities, and I'm unfamiliar with what their syrups taste like, so let's just try a swig of this. Tastes like blueberries, but maybe a little bit more sugary, a little bit more rich. Okay, next we have perhaps the most iconic food of the city of Montreal, which is a Montreal-style bagel. I am not a bagel connoisseur, so I cannot tell you exactly how a Montreal-style bagel is better than any other kind of bagel. To spread on the Montreal-style bagel, I bought this Winnipeg-style cream cheese. I do not know what Winnipeg-style cream cheese is like, but if it is anything like the dreadful city from which it emerges, I imagine it is quite boring. Yep, that is certainly cream cheese. Okay, and so next we have the traditional Canadian pastries. Now, when I was a young Canadian boy, I remember that my grandmother would often make these for us at Christmas time. So there are basically two iconic Canadian pastries. We have the butter tart and we have the Nanaimo bar. Every list of Canadian foods you will see on YouTube or any sort of internet slideshow will always contain these two things. They are very iconic. The Nanaimo bar is named after the city of Nanaimo, which is in British Columbia, which is where I live. It sort of has a chocolatey, grainy layer, and then it has like a layer of some sort of suety icing goo, and then it has a thin layer of chocolate on top of that. What I associate them most with is when you're going to a buffet, and then they will always have the dessert table at the buffet, and they'll always have little squares and things to eat. And they will always, in a Canadian buffet, there will always be Nanaimo bars at the end. And the other thing is a butter tart, which is just a kind of flaky pie tart shell, usually very thick, that is full of a kind of goo that is made of sugar and butter and usually has raisins in it as well. All right, what next? This is Canadian-style rye bread. Now, I am also unfamiliar with how Canadian-style rye bread is different than any other kind of rye bread. So Canadian rye is maybe white. I associate rye bread as usually being rather dark in color. As you can see, I have done absolutely no research for this because I assumed that my inherent Canadianness would provide enough knowledge unto itself, which is clearly not the case. A lot of traditional Canadian foods of this sort are not actually things that are that common in Canadian life. You kind of have to go out of your way to be aware of this. So Canadians obviously like their maple syrup, and Canadians like maple flavored everything. You can get lots of candies and whatnot. But this was the first time that I had seen this maple flavored bread. This is some sort of stale toast that has little infused chunks of maple sugar in it. It would be really good to make this into French toast, so FYI. Now, I live in British Columbia, short for British Columbia, BC. A lot of Asian people live in British Columbia, a lot of Japanese people. Over the years, they've come up with a distinctive Canadian style of sushi, which is known as the BC roll. The BC roll contains barbecued salmon skin. The salmon is a very iconic fish in the Pacific Northwest, which is where British Columbia is located. Frankly, I prefer the California roll, but still, it's fun that Canada has its own distinctive sushi, right? Now, Canada is a big potato-producing nation, which I suppose is probably where the poutine thing maybe comes from. And the two most economically useless parts of the country are the ones that produce the two most iconic types of potato. So we have the Prince Edward Island potato, which comes from the province of Prince Edward Island, which is this tiny island in the Atlantic Ocean. Potatoes is perhaps the only thing that the tiny province is known for. And then we also have Yukon Gold potatoes, which are potatoes that, if I cut it open, you can see have this distinctive yellow flesh, much like the gold in the Yukon. So there you have it, 10 stupid Canadian foods. Now, if you are a Canadian watching this and feel I have made some horrible omission in my cornucopia over here, please let me know in the comments below. And as usual, if there's anything else about Canada you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments below as well, because as much as my love affair with my own country is lukewarm at best, I do enjoy sharing these kinds of things with other people. And that about does it for now. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later.